Namaste. Welcome to an Unprogrammed Life with Ocean Eagle. I am Ocean Eagle, and this is episode 3 of this podcast and YouTube channel that I've started. And the last 2 episodes, I talked a lot about a lot of wounding, a lot of childhood stuff that went on with me, teenage year stuff, later stuff that I created myself. But I want to start going back. On the last episode, I finished off with some spiritual bypassing, ways that we bypass the necessary work that needs to be done in order to become who we're meant to be. Because I feel like most people in the world are just these versions of themselves that they've had to build in order to make themselves look like what society says they should look like, so that they feel valid or that they feel like they've accomplished something. And I think we have it all backwards. That's just my perception. I knew I did. I had it all backwards. So when we look at, I'll go into spiritual bypassing maybe in a little while, but what I want to talk about now is like on a basic level when we're children, how the programming starts and how it starts really shaping us, whether it be through our parents, whether it be through our experiences that we've had. A lot of us have, had what's considered normal childhoods. And there's people like me that had a lot of trauma, a lot of abandonment, a lot of abuse, a lot of neglect I talk about. And then there's people that had a lot of physically to themselves harm done. I had some of that. I had sexual abuse, not actually done to me, but what I went through with my dad and my mom. But some people have had a lot of sexual abuse done to them, both men and women I've talked to. So what happens is the programming kicks in from a very early age. We get this version of ourselves, like I've talked about before. We start building this version of ourselves to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves what the outside world's version of happy is. And then we have all these childlike qualities when we're children, and we just want to play and have fun. And then this stuff starts happening. We're told no all the time, and we're not given a container to really manifest our gifts. And then we get into the school system, and I can talk forever about the school system. Keep in mind, I'm the father of 4. My children are 14, 16, 22, and 24 at the time of this recording. And, I volunteered in all their elementary school classrooms. I've went to all their school assemblies. I've been to just about all of I've coached 15 seasons of sports for the kids. So I come from a deep background of, not only was I, participating in the programming, but I've watched so many people get so deeply caught in this programming with our children. And our children are the ones that are going to lead us out of this, thing that we're in today, this thing that's been created in the world of separation and isolation and making people feel like they're greater than or less than other people because of what they can do or what they have. And it's like, when we look at our children and what they go through in elementary school, we see that it's a reward based society. If you do this, you're going to get a reward. And that's part of where the programming goes wrong, because then we start giving kids rewards to start controlling them, to get them to not do the things that we should just let them do sometimes. I was so that parent for a long time. I still have my moments where all the old stuff kicks in, and but I try to recognize it, at a very early stage with my children. When we're in an argument, or I make sure I tell my kids I'm sorry these days, and now my children will come say they're sorry to me, when that didn't happen in the past. So one of the things that we start doing, like, here's something in elementary school that I never felt good about, right? We have these school assemblies here in America, And these school assemblies give out these awards to all these kids, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way up to sixth grade. And all the kids have to get an award at some point throughout the year, right? The spark plug award, or we make stuff up just to give our kids things so they'll feel important or special. The one that I had the biggest problem with was the attendance award. Let's give the kid who never caught a cold in elementary school a gift. Let's bring him on stage and let's parade him in front of everybody else. And let's make everybody else feel bad because they got sick and because their parents were responsible and didn't let their kid go to school when their kid was sick so it wouldn't get other kids sick. So I don't think you can tell me that a kid went 7 years of school and never had a cold. But these parents are so programmed that my kid can't miss school and my kid's got to go. And oh my gosh, it's going to mess up his attendance record. Who gives a shit? I don't. My kid's sick, let him stay home. If I want to pull my kid out of school to go take him skiing on a Tuesday because it's so crowded in California on Saturdays and Sundays, I'm going to do it because I know that whatever happened that day in elementary school is not going to be as important as that time we spent together as a family and being out in nature, and doing fun things and being at the river, at the lake, and in California, it's so crowded that to go on the weekends, it can be a nightmare. So I'm a big fan of missing school sometimes. And heck, they miss school all the time these days because the teachers need, we get like on Thanksgiving now, my kids are out half minimum days the week before Thanksgiving, and they're out the entire week of Thanksgiving before they go back to school for 3 weeks. And then they're out for another 2.5, 3 weeks for winter break. So it's just amazing to watch these parents that push their kids. And then you have the reading award, and you get these kids up on stage and you put them in front of these other kids, and everybody's going to have a different opinion of this, but all the other kids that are struggling, that don't learn the same way, that don't have a gift of reading well, and they're struggling, they can't even get their letters right because they've got dyslexia. We put all of our elementary schools and junior high kids, and we put them in a box. We put them in a container, and we do not cater to the needs of these children. And we wonder why in America these kids are struggling, why they feel stressed. My daughter gets so stressed these days and has anxiety around school. Here's a case in point. My ex, the mother of my children, sent me something the other day, and it was a copy of my son's CAT scores. It's a standardized testing that they do here in California. Oh my gosh. She was so upset that he didn't score well, and even told me, make sure you don't show him this because he'll get really upset because he already thinks he's not smart. And it just broke my heart. It's like, oh my God, my son, Cade, has the biggest heart of anybody I've ever known. I would rather have him have a big heart than be smart. And by the way, he is a very smart young man. I know he's smart, and I don't base my children's aptitude for learning based on what the California school system says. Because I had one of my sons, a 22-year-old, he was my stepson. His mom and dad, my ex and his dad, decided to hold him back in 5th grade. That killed that kid's self-esteem. It was devastating for him to have to go back and redo 5th grade again and have all of his friends go up, higher, and he'd be judged and looked down upon. So this whole thing about pushing our kids through, no, we need to come up with a system that can teach our children well and that can teach the children differently. But it's and this thing about attendance is about money. In California, the schools get funding based on a lot of it's based on their attendance record for the children. So we as parents are programmed that we have to get our kids to school all the time. Then we get into things where our kids are starting to do sports, where I was, I don't remember a lot of sports around when I was very young, but the programming that goes on around sports and what it is, it's generational. It's stuff that's being passed down over and over and over. And until we break it, we're just doomed to repeat the same thing. Um, because a lot of these parents that I see, and I coached a lot of sports, they feel like their kid at 7, 8, 9 years old is going to go pro. And they have them out there all year round in sports, all year round in soccer, all year round in softball, all year round in baseball. Um, Kids need a break. Kids need a break. They need to play sports in the seasons, and they need to be able to play. You need to have time as a family. I know this one family that I coached this one boy, and they were never a family. They were so programmed that their kids had to be in year-round sports. They were never together as a family. The dad was off in another state with a 10-year-old. Why is a 10-year-old leaving states to go play a sport? And then the mom's off with the 8-year-old somewhere else in another sport. And then the other third kid was left behind with the grandparents. And that's part of the programming, right? That's part of my kid has to do this. My kid's got to do this. He has to be on this select team, or he has to be on this travel ball team, or they won't pick him next year. Here's the deal for me. If children have a gift, it will come out. If they have a gift, and if they have a drive inside themselves to grow that gift. I went to school on a baseball scholarship, and it's not because I put all this effort into playing baseball. I had a gift, and I got to go to school. A lot of kids worked harder than I did in high school and before at the sport. But the ones that have a gift and want to work at it as well are the ones that really can maybe have a chance going there. I played baseball the summer between my freshman and sophomore year in the Kansas Jayhawk League with studs from all over the country. I mean, University of Miami, 2 of them from University of Texas, third baseman from Texas A&M, UCLA, Cal State Fullerton. I mean, we had studs on our team. Not one of them played professional baseball for a living. Not one of them, and that's how select it is and how rare it is. But we see and we glorify these sports, and and here's another thing that came up for me today. I was thinking about it. If I see one more grown man yell and scream at the crowd and show his muscles because he threw a round piece of leather into a metal hoop, I'm going to throw up. And don't get me wrong. I liked going to basketball games, and I got excited but now that I've, had this awakening, and I'm, on this other path in life, it's like, oh my gosh, and then everybody's just like, programmed to have an attachment to a sports team and have an attachment to a guy being able to thunder crush a basketball through a metal hoop. It's like, man, it's like there's so many other great causes out in the world right now that need our attention, need our focus. And we just get so taken away from that with this thing that we're programmed with, that sports and sports players are these kings, and we put them on pedestals. And I have a different opinion of that right now. Not that, I can't admire someone's athletic ability, but at the same time, now that I've, turned the corner on a lot of stuff, it's like, man, I would much rather go hang out in a cave in Peru, or go hang out at the, pyramids in Egypt and try to, get a download of Akashic records through the third paw, through the left paw of the Sphinx, through the Lion's Gate. Man, for me, that's just for me. And I'm an athlete, but it's no judgment. This is just all my perception. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it personal. If you're, a fan of an athletic team, if you've allowed yourself to be that attached, to teams, no judgment. It's your life. Do it how you want, do it well. But for me, it's, and there's so many great causes out there we can and so many great people out there doing such amazing work around the world, that if we can undo our mind, and really start tapping into what's important in life, then we can make a difference. So going back to school, so the CAT score with my son, it's like, he's a very smart kid, but just like with the SAT score, it's about separation. We want to separate these kids. I would rather see in elementary school that if these kids have read all these books and have all these books read and have gotten certain grades, have a separate ceremony for them. You know, bring them all together, have a ceremony for them. Don't parade them up in front of the other 700 kids that didn't get anything, that struggle in school, that aren't good readers. You know, and because it makes them feel bad. To me, I'm not saying we don't, acknowledge the gifted kids and the ones that have put effort into stuff. Yeah, by all means, let's do that. But I think we should do it differently. I don't think we should have a big assembly and everybody, get together. And I think the parents and the kids and the staff can get together and acknowledge those kids separately. Just my personal opinion. Father of four, I think we should do away with that. I think it's a waste of time. Um, the kids that are gifted know they're gifted, and their parents should be, acknowledging them and giving them their own gifts at home for that kind of stuff. But that's just my perception on it. Because what it does is it lowers kids' self-esteem, and it makes kids that are having trouble and struggling, it makes them feel bad about themselves. So the programming kicks in again in elementary school with our teachers, depending on my son struggled all the way through third grade, and then all of a sudden he got a teacher that cared, and man, did he exploded. He took off. So when we give the children an environment that they thrive in, then their gifts become manifested, and whatever they're meant to do can be brought forward so they can help this planet and really bring forward their essence and their purpose, and try to find that at a very early age. Getting kids quiet is very important to me. Getting kids in nature, getting them out of the house, getting them as a family out at a lake or out on the river or out in a mountain somewhere. Taking kids on vacations to, places where you sit around in a lounge chair, that's not for me. I have no desire to go sit around by a pool for hours and hours, or go sit on a bench, by the ocean for hours. I like experiencing things. I like getting out and finding the ancient sites, and I like tapping into ancient wisdom, and I like connecting with the rock people. I like connecting with the earth. I like connecting with the wind. I like connecting with water, all the elements. Because we're all kind of made up of all of that. We're all the elements embodied, and we're all the universe embodied, is my belief. So, so what's happened for me as I've done this journey is, as I continue to turn inward and look at all the stuff that happened in childhood, and look at what I was told, and look how it affected my decision-making going on in life, I realized that everything inside me was blocked based on all the old stuff my dad did, the old stuff my mom did. And I had to go in there and get all that stuff out. And it's like this, my heart and my soul were so damaged and so blocked. So I had this employee of mine from my real estate company, and she was a friend. Only employee I've ever had, actually, only W-2 employee. And she ended up stealing a lot of money from me, a bunch of money. And she ended up not taking care of my books in QuickBooks, and my companies were destroyed. I had a couple of them going on at the time, and they were just destroyed. I had to take 2 years of canceled checks from both companies, and I had to go through every one of them one by one, and I had to get with a new CPA, and we had to rebuild both of my companies from the ground up. That was the status of my heart and my soul as I started this inward turn in this journey. My heart and my soul were bankrupt. And in order to get there, I had to go pull out all of the old records from childhood forward. And I had to go through all of them one by one. And I had to rebuild my heart and my soul. I had to rebuild everything inside me because I was so lost and wounded and damaged. So today, after doing all of that work, and I'll get into a lot of that work as we go forward, and kind of what I did, and how I was able to transmute all of that heavy energy into positive life force energy, And it was through a lot of writing, and it was through a lot of time introspective work. And I had to go look at the stuff that I didn't want to go look at. The book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about, sorry about that. The book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, when I was doing the steps, I was reading the book, that half measures avail us nothing. And that's true. It's like, if I do half the work, then I'm probably not going to get the results that I'm looking for at all. And today I do whatever work I do, and I don't have any attachment to the results anyway. So I don't even have any of those expectations, so that I can't be let down. I can't set myself up for that letdown. And when I do when I go into the messy, ugly work, it was a fearless moral inventory of myself. It wasn't a fearless moral inventory of my dad or my mom. I wasn't taking their inventory. I took mine. I took stock in my part in everything. So when I went back and I saw what had happened that I didn't have any control over, and then I understood that it was me giving it all energy, it gave me the gift of desperation again, so that I would go to do what was necessary in order to become the person that I love today. And keep in mind that I'm a work in progress always. There's no finish line. I mess up all the time. I've got to constantly go back and make amends when I've messed up. So this is not coming from a place of a perfect seat. This is coming from a place of a completely imperfect seat. But this is all about clearing the path, me rebuilding my heart and my soul from the ground up, going back to the earliest things I can remember, and peeling back the layers of that onion, and really taking a look and holding myself, not needing someone else to hold me and feel sorry for me, to really go back as a child and hold myself through each wound and each thing that happened, and go remember and think and really go back and pull all that stuff out. When I can clear all of that stuff out and get rid of the programmed choices. I made programmed choices when I was so young. I've talked about it before, where as a 7-year-old, I told myself I was never getting married, because of the stuff that had happened in my childhood. And I made those choices going forward with everything. Eventually what happened was I started numbing out with all kinds of stuff. I started numbing out, and so I would take all that pain and that trauma and that wounding, that suffering, and I would numb it out with alcohol, starting at age like 14. And then I started doing drugs, and because that's what everybody else was doing, right? The programming says that my friends are all doing it, so I'm going to do it. So I justified and rationalized it because everybody else was doing it, because society says it was what kids should do or teenagers should do. Or in West Texas, it was, everybody drinks alcohol, it's totally fine. And, looking back at it now, I understand that it was all just, this, what I've talked about it before, the false ego mask. I had to build this version of myself that would keep me safe and protected. And I've talked to people around the world that are doing spiritual work around the world. Really, what everybody wants around the world, and when you scratch the surface off of all the modalities and all the belief systems and all the people around the world, and you really look at a core level, what they're really looking for, everybody just wants to be safe. They want to be safe, they want to be happy, and they want to feel loved. And that's the base that I think that everybody really is trying to get to. The problem is we just have these programmed ideas from either our society that we live in or the culture we're raised in, that tell us that our lives have to look different than what the Creator made our lives to be. And when we fall short of those ideas and that program belief system, we walk around feeling like we're not enough. We walk around looking and judging our lives based on those that have the things that society says we're supposed to have. And then we feel like shit. We have no self-esteem. We're constantly feeling like we're behind. We're constantly feeling like we got to, in America, we call it keeping up with the Joneses, right? We've got to have that car, or we've got to have this looking wife, and we're just constantly feeling like we're reaching for some finish line that's never gonna appear. There's no way that um, we could ever live up to what society, social media, television, movies, no way we could ever live up to all of that fantasy, all of that stuff that's just not real. I posted it on Facebook today or yesterday. If everything, like I said, if everything goes away right now and everything just disappears and life here on earth ends and my soul, it's time to go, I only get to take that soul with me. And I choose today on a daily basis to do the inner soul work so that I can have a healthy, held soul. And but I want to talk quickly about this bypassing thing because a lot of people want the quick fix. They want to get to the other side quickly. Can't I just look at my wounds and then I'm done? Like, no, not for me, not where I came from. You got to go in there and you got to pull them all out of the closet and you got to like put them on a hanger, put them out in front of you. You got to look at them and then you got to name them and then you got to like feel the pain again. And then you got to like, and who wants to do that, right? Who wants to do a fearless inventory of themselves like that? It's like, it's not fun work, but it's necessary. It's necessary. If you feel stuck and if you feel like you're just not going anywhere, take a look at all the things that you think you're missing in your life that society says you should have. Because this is about looking at our life. And if we want to make a change in our life, it's not about how am I going to go make more money? That's not what it is for me. When I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, I feel like the money will happen. I do today. You know, I'm pretty much not really doing real estate these days, which I've done for 20 years. I don't really know where this is going to go in about the next year or so. You know, so I trust. I surrender on a daily basis to this calling within me, my truth within me. I accept my truth within me. I walk my truth every day, and I don't make excuses for myself anymore. I I trust the Creator's plan for me in design, and I have faith that everything is happening in the Creator's design and not mine. Because when I try to take control of the wheel and I try to drive the bus, I drive the bus into a ditch all the time. So I like kicking back and sitting in the back and doing my part and letting God or the Creator or whatever you need to call Allah, whatever you need to call, drive the bus, because she knows where it's going. I don't need to know where it's going. I get excited every day to wake up because new magic happens. And I have these cool, amazing people that come into my life. And it's because I'm in a state of surrender. It's because I'm not grabbing onto relationships I don't need to grab onto anymore. It's because I'm not keeping somebody in my life because I want something from them. And how many of us do that in society, in work, in friendships? And if we look at our intentions and we look at what's really real inside of us, we're holding on to things with people that really don't belong in our lives. And that's the programmed way of thinking, that, and a cultural way of thinking. You know, gosh, the cultural programming that goes on in different religions and different parts of the world and different countries. I just spoke with a woman in Dubai, and you could hear it, man. You could hear you could hear the wounding in her, and you could hear and she mentioned, my culture doesn't think that way. I'm like, well, what do you think? It's like, screw, I'm going to say F word, but screw your culture. What do you think? What's that feeling inside you that needs to even say that my culture doesn't think that way? Okay, well, you've attached yourself to your culture. You've attached yourself to your family's ideas. What are yours? What do you really feel? What do you really want out of life? What's your truth? What's your essence? What's your purpose inside your chest telling you? Because when we go against that, we're fighting ourselves. We're a fraud to ourselves. I was a fraud to myself for so long, and I didn't even know why I had so much fear and so much anxiety. And it was because I was so locked up and taking off my mask. My mask kept me safe. my mask was the only thing that kept air moving in and out of my lungs. It was my teddy bear. It was my security blanket, that false ego that I had to live by for so long was the only thing that, kept me alive, really. And I'm grateful for it today. Like I've said before, I'm grateful for it. Okay, I got to wrap this one up. I was a little scattered today. I love you all with all my heart. Um, I just have so much compassion for everybody that's struggling, everybody that's stuck in the program story that tells you are who you are when in reality you're just not who you're meant to be yet. And I say this with everything in my heart and in my chest that I love you, and I wish the best for all of you. Namaste.